Everyone, and welcome to a new short video interview with one of our members. I'm Carla Sassi, convener of IASSL, and today we are traveling from Germany to Taiwan, and I am delighted to introduce Professor Shu-Fang Lai. Shu-Fang is professor at the Department of Foreign Languages and Literature at National Sun Yat-Sen University, as well as joint professor at the Department of Medical Humanities and Education at Kaohsiung Medical University. And she's also a member of the IASSL Executive Committee. She obtained her master from the University of Edinburgh and her PhD from the University of Glasgow. And she was visiting research fellow at the Institute for Advanced Studies in the Humanities at the University of Edinburgh. Her interests range from Victorian literature to literature and science, 19th century periodicals, Scottish children's literature, and literary translation. She has recently co-edited The Land of Storybooks, Scottish Children's Literature in the Long 19th Century, that was published in 2019. And she has published widely on many different topics, including Eileen Patterson's series of illustrated books about Maisie the Cat, 2002, Harriet Martineau's Historiette of Mary, Queen of Scots, 2012, and translations of Scottish children's literature. She has focused on Victorian Scotland's encounter with Formosa and published, among others, an essay on Western medical education in Formosa in the 19th century, David Manson Memorial Hospital and its Medical Education Scheme, 2018, and another essay on voyages to the Central Flowery Land, an exploration of Robert Fortune and the genre of his travelogues, published in 2021. So welcome, Shu-Fang. It is an honor and a delight to have you here today. And perhaps you could open our conversation by telling us something about your history as a scholar of Scottish studies and about your experience of working with Scottish institutions.
I first went to Edinburgh University in 1993, mainly to study not Scottish literature, but Dickens for my higher degrees. The idea is not as crazy as it may sound. In fact, it turns out to be one of the best decisions I've made. We all know Edinburgh is such a hub of knowledge of all time. In particular, in the last decades of the 20th century, a golden time really, there gathered a galaxy of brilliant Dickensians and Victorianists in Scotland. I was so fortunate to have studied with Professor K.J. Fielding, one of the editors of the monumental Dickens letters and Carlyle letters, for my project on Dickens and science. And in a way, my landlady, Dr. Susan Shettle, the general editor of the companion series of Dickens's novels, who's also a Tennyson scholar, Penny Fielding and David Newell among my supervisors, and I met a few more great scholars. I must mention that Dickens's wife, Catherine, was born in Edinburgh and allowed to rest in peace in her hometown. Dickens's sub-editor, W.G. Wills, was trained in Chambers' Edinburgh Journal and married the youngest daughter of the Chambers before working for Dickens's weeklies. Of course, National Library of Scotland was, and still is, indispensable to me for my works on 19th century periodicals. So Scotland is my treasure island of literature where I can explore and make adventures. After I came back to teach in Taiwan, recently in the summers when I was a visiting research fellow at the IASSL of Edinburgh, I made further discoveries about Scottish literatures, besides finishing my translation on Hale's posthuman book and planning a special issue on medicine and literature. Scotland has been my gateway to cutting-edge research. In fact, my time with it had actually started earlier than I first realized, often through translations in my childhood readings. stories about Scottish collies, Captain Hook's artificial hand, and all the fearful fights in Peter Pan, the talking animals in Kenneth Graham's The Wind in the Willows, translated and serialized in a children's paper in Taiwan in 1973, the earliest of my school days. Then I've written to introduce my readers in Taiwan, Eileen Patterson, the creators of Macy the Cat from Morningside. I'd say that my approach toward Scottish literature has just come naturally.
Thank you. The next question would be about your interest in Scottish children's literature. How did that start and develop? And perhaps something on the Land of Storybooks project.
Okay. Because I've associated Scottish literature with my childhood, and my old classmate and good friend, Sarah Dunningham from Glasgow, teaching in Edinburgh now, got involved in the project of children's books in the Museum of Childhood. So we decided to edit a collection of articles on 19th century Scottish children's books. We hope to draw more attention to not just what's already well known, but what's often neglected. In it, there are my chapter on Chambers' journalistic writings for children, Sarah's on fairy tales, other brilliant articles on subjects such as Scottish nursery poems, chapbooks, Gaelic tradition, Greyfriars Barbie, Scottish publishers, and many Scottish writers' works for the young. After this, I've carried on research into periodicals such as Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine and writings on historical figures like Mary Queen of Scots, the botanist Robert Fortune and his travelogies, the medics Patrick Manson and James Maxwell, the founders of the first Western medical school in Formosa, today's Taiwan, missionaries and more other Scots who've come to Asia. I've been also intrigued by William Townsend's photographs, bridges here that look just like Forth Bridge, and more other Scottish vestiges and missing links yet to be uncovered, like translation of Scottish literature in Taiwan, past and present.
Thank you, Shu-Fang. That was certainly very interesting. And to conclude, you could provide some insight into the state of Scottish studies in Taiwan and tell us something about your own experience of teaching Scottish texts in your classes.
Okay. Here in Taiwan, we have many scholars like me who studied in the universities in Scotland. Notably, Taiwan people shared with Scots the love of liberty, of knowledge, and a similar quest for national identity. Over the years, I've come to include Scottish literature in my teaching syllabuses. For example, I've always led my undergrads singing Burns lyrics in the opening class on English literature since 1800. You can imagine how popular it has become. Readings on Stevenson's stories and Peter Pan in courses like fiction or children's literature. I believe more research projects, school curricula, and cultural exchanges will emerge here to do with Scottish studies. All the encounters and connection with Scotland so enrich one's life. I'm so glad to have bumped into Carla in the National Library and to have this chance of sharing thoughts. There is always a longing in me to fly back to Scotland periodically, like those seasonal birds. Edinburgh is like my second home, and I always need to walk on its streets and meadows to visit the botanic gardens, the galleries, and the familiar shops, the festivals, and to spend some time reading and making discoveries in the reader's room in the National Library of Scotland, just like old days when I first went to Edinburgh almost 13 years ago. I feel quite painful to have missed it for 2 summers now because of the pandemic. Hopefully, it won't be too long till I can travel back soon again and to have more wonders in the amazing land. Thank you.
Thank you, Shu-Fang, for a truly inspiring interview. I'm sure our viewers have enjoyed it as much as I have. I share your feelings of nostalgia for the National Library of Scotland and for Scotland. So let's hope indeed that we will be able to see each other there again soon. So thank you again, and thank you to all our viewers for being with us today.